Hello there, boys and girls, and welcome along to today's United Kingdom talk. Now, listen carefully. Do the birds sound any different today? That's the question. Those of you listening, listen carefully. Do the birds sound any different? Am I in my garden? Or could I possibly be somewhere else? Well, yes, if the eagle-eyed ears will notice, they are not actually the same birds that usually sing on my programme. And incidentally, we have had a letter of complaint for the Royal Bird Society, Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, accusing me of employing those little singing creatures and not paying them any money. Well, we can't afford to pay people for money, dear. I don't get paid for this either. So they do it for nothing. So I'm very sorry to the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, but I cannot afford to pay my birds. Okay, they sing through the goodness of the heart because they love me. And believe me, I love them as well. I love them so much that occasionally, when one lands in the garden, I push a button, a little alarm goes off, you know, in the shed that one of the cats live in. A little alarm goes off there. And the cats immediately are dispatched into the garden to rid me of that flying creature that has had the audacity to land in my garden and not pay rent. Dear. Now, as you know, I'm also a little bit of a landlord. I'm a little bit of a landlord, and I do insist on having my rents paid on time. And these birds are landing in the garden without paying rent. It's a liberty, that's what it is, dear. Back to the show. Yes, can you hear the birds today? Of course, those of you that watch the show on YouTube will already have noticed that there's a difference to today's show. Because I have come once again into the middle of Swinley Forest here in Bracknell in Royal Berkshire, and I'm in the middle of the forest and I've found a lake. There's a lake right behind me, and when I found this I actually came up here on Sunday afternoon for a bit of a walk. I do now like going walking on Sunday afternoons. Anyone else do that? I like to try during the week as well, but there's not always the time. So Sunday afternoon is now my walking afternoon, and I came over here. There's Swinley Forest is about, literally, I mean, within 10 minutes, you can be in the middle of the forest, and listen carefully, right? Listen. No road. Nothing. Now and again, a plane going over. I mean, it's similar in my garden, to be honest. But of course, here, you've got like a different... I thought it would be quite nice to have a lake behind me, and I am actually perched on top of a a cut down tree. And I must admit, already we're only into a couple of minutes into the programme, and my bum has gone to sleep. It is not comfortable at all. I've like folded up my hooded top that I'm wearing up here today to put that on top of the log, the cut down tree, in order to try and give myself a bit of a cushioning effect, but it hasn't quite worked. My bum is going to sleep, so we might have to move before the end of the show. But really, this is the only place I can sit down where you can see the lake. It's just quite a nice background, isn't it? So that's where I am today, in the middle of the forest. As always, got lots of emails coming up. Welcome along. My name's Chris Reardon. This is United Kingdom Talk, my 3 times a week talk show. And you can, of course, join in by email. The email address is chris@unitedkingdomtalk.co.uk. chris@unitedkingdomtalk.co.uk. Yeah, as I say, on Sunday I popped over here for a little bit of a walk. Now, usually I'll only come over here for, say, 45 minutes, but I had a lot of time. I actually had, believe it or not, some spare time on Sunday. So I came up here and I thought, let's see if I can find a lake. Now, not any old lake, and indeed the lake I'm sitting in front of is not the one I was looking for. When I first moved to Bracknell, here in Berkshire in 1992, within a couple of years, I think I came over here on my bike, which I've come over by bike today on my push bike, and I cycled round and round, and I eventually came across this big lake. And ever since then, I know it sounds stupid, but ever since then I've been trying to find it again, and I've never been able to find this lake again. As I say, it's quite large. The thought never ever crossed my mind to look at a map. I mean, because there it would be, but that's by and by. So yesterday I came up here, I was walking along, I found some power lines going right the way through the forest, and actually on a Sunday it's a little bit busier on a Sunday. Today we probably won't bump into anyone while we're up here, although I have to say I've just been chatting away to a lady who was up here walking her dogs, and I followed these power lines down and it came to a crossroads, and there were some people on bikes at the crossroads, and I says, have you passed the lake anywhere at all? And they said, oh no, we haven't. He said, we've got a map here though, do you want to have a look at this? And they were all sort of gathered around this map, clearly as lost as I was, but it wasn't too bad because we're sticking to the main paths. So one thing I haven't got is a very good sense of direction. I'm all over the place. We looked at this map, and sure enough there was the little lake that we'd already passed, which is this one behind me. I'd already gone past this, and like when I was walking down here, I came over to this lake. There was a man with a dog yesterday, actually, not yesterday, on Sunday, and I looked here and I thought to myself that would be a good place to do a show. So I've sort of remembered that in my mind, but I looked at it and I thought to myself, that is not the lake that I remember when I came over here, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. So I carried on down the path and went down to this crossroads. When I found the people with map, we found the lake on the map, and they said, well, we think it's that way, because I looked at this map. I'm completely useless at reading maps or compasses or anything like that. And it's true. I told you a long time ago, I once was working with, I was a scout leader, and we went to a place in Surrey called Box Hill, which is a very well-known beauty spot here in the south of the UK. And we went on this nighttime hike, and all we had was a map and a compass and me in charge. Well, I'm afraid we didn't get anywhere, and if I think we set off at about 7 o'clock at night, and the other scout leader was waiting with a van. He said, I'll meet you here. No chance of that at all, I'm afraid. And of course this was, I mean, I'll tell you how long this was ago. There were no mobile phones. Okay, so we are going back here 20 years. I think I was 20 or 21 at the time, and eventually I think we were going around in circles, and I mean, I look at this compass and it says go that way, and I had no clue what to do. Eventually we found our way back to a main road, and we must have walked along this main road for a good half hour, 45 minutes, and fortunately we were on the main road that took us back to the car, believe it or not. Oh no, I tell you what happened. We found a telephone box on the main road, and I rung up the other scout leader's home phone number and left a message with his wife, thinking to myself, he will probably ring there to see if anyone else has rang, and that's exactly what I did. And I think we got back to the van at about 11:30 at night eventually, after getting lost like that. And of course we got back to the scout hut, and there was all these angry parents, what's happened to my children? And it was all my fault. But I'm really not good at finding my way from A to B. That's why I've got a sat-nav in the car, which I've had for quite some time. Anyway, so those people with the map, so we looked at the map and they said, well, it looks like it's that way. So I said, okay, well, I'll walk along that way, because Sunday here in the UK was it's got to be one of the nicest days, and here we are halfway through October. I mean, it's madness. I am walking through the forest. Okay, I mean, I say through the forest, the bits I was walking from was fairly clear, the sun gets through. I had no t-shirt off, I'm walking topless. Now, I know that's got some of you excited, especially Joy and Act. Joy, calm down now, dear. Sit down and have a glass of water. Joy is one of our regular listeners who listens to the show in Acton in London, and she gets a little bit excited when she hears the mention of naked flesh, don't you? I was topless, okay, so I'm walking down topless in the middle of October. I mean, it must have been at least 70 degrees Fahrenheit here on Sunday. Untrue, isn't it, eh? Middle of October. One of the best days of the year. So I continued to walk down a little bit further, and to be honest, on the map it did look like it was quite a long way to go. but I thought, well, I'll walk a bit further and see what we got. And I looked at my watch, or my mobile phone, because I haven't got a watch. No, you don't see watches many more. I wonder if watches are going to die out. Well, when you think about it, you've got clocks on mobile phones, video cassette recorders and everything, haven't you? Do you think watches will actually die out? Anyway, so I looked at my mobile phone, and an hour had now passed, and I thought, well, I'll better try and go back now. And I thought, well, I don't want to go back along the same path that I've gone along. So I sort of judged in my mind how to go take another path, sort of roughly in the same direction. Now, usually, in that case, that's a big mistake from my point, and I start panicking. I'm terrible getting lost. I get lost so easily. It may be why I'm not. I mean, I know I've been to some lovely countries and places like that, but I certainly wouldn't go to somewhere where they don't speak English, because I'd be terrified of getting lost. It's all right if you're in the States or Australia or somewhere like that, but Italy or Germany, anywhere, I can't speak a word of German, not a word. I mean, the only Italian I can do is ciao, 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 and of course that great Italian expression, just like a mum used to make. You kind of walk into. I mean, I have been to Rome, beautiful city. Oh, it's like stepping out into a history book. It really is, Rome and Italy and the Vatican. And you go in a sandwich shop and say, could I, and you speak slowly in English, don't you? Assuming, of course, that they speak English. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Why should they speak English? You know, you go into the sandwich shop and you say, could I have a ham sandwich? And to make it sound Italian, you say, just like a mama used to make. And they say, "K?" Like that. I haven't got a clue what you're talking. Can I have a ham sandwich just like your mama used to make? You got to try that when you go to Italy. It doesn't work, but try it anyway. So I carried on walking, and actually I did find my way back to just a little bit further down where I entered the forest, so it wasn't too bad at all. But very nice indeed. I've had a lovely day Sunday, but I didn't actually find the lake. So what I'm going to do is, when I've finished recording this show, I'm going to go down to the someone jogging over there. I've got to admit, I do feel a bit stupid sitting here talking. I mean, they don't. You see, the thing is, these people that walk past, I didn't realise this is actually, since I started the show, 3 people have walked past so far, and I didn't think this was such a busy like run through. That was a jogger then. But you see, these people who walk past, they don't know that you're there. That's the thing. I've got to be honest, even I do feel a little bit silly, because they don't. I mean, I know you're there. Okay, I don't feel like I'm sitting here talking to myself. I know you're there, but they don't. As far as they're concerned, this is some sad old git sitting in the middle of the forest talking to himself. They don't know you're there. It's all a bit weird, really. So I did find my way back, and when I finish the show today, I'm going to go down to the they have like a little shop within Swinley Forest, and it's actually more than a shop. It's a whole centre where children can go and do activities and things like that, called the Lookout. You can look that up if you want on the internet. It's called the Lookout, and I shall get myself a map probably down there, and some other bits and pieces. Oh, we've got a dog visiting now. We've got a dog visiting. Hello, mister. Hey, do you want to come say hello? Come here. Come say hello. Come on, mate. You going in there? What's your name? What's his name? Monty. Oh, it's my sister's got a dog called Monty as well. You Monty the dog. You coming to say hello? Eh? He is. He's all right. He might knock over the camera. I'm not quite sure. We'll have a look there. He'll be all right. He looks very confused about the camera. Oh, Monty. It's a shame you can't see him. There he goes. Cheers. Yeah, I didn't actually realise it was so busy yet. It's embarrassing, isn't it? Did you see the dog then? I don't know if he actually came into view. It was a big blooming dog. I was a little bit worried there, because you know, sometimes you're out in these places and people do walk dogs, and they don't mean any harm. But occasionally you do get a dog that takes disliking to you, don't you? And it was a bit worrying when that one came over there. So I shall get a map later on, and hopefully in the next few shows or so I will be able to find the larger lake, and I'll do a show from there. I'm ever so uncomfortable. Can I just a minute now? I'm actually sitting right on the edge of the. If I slip, I'm going to go straight back into the lake. But don't worry, even people who are just listening will be able to hear the authentic splash of the water as I enter it. Right, hang on, let's sit back down here. Just before I started the show, actually, I came along here on my bike. I put my bike up against a tree there. And there was a chat with a dog over there, and anyway, he went off. And then I was sitting there just sorting out my papers, because I've got, don't worry, I've got all of the emails with me here. So we'll go on to those in a second or two. And a lady came over with 2 red setters. She was just walking around. And of course the dogs, I mean, you know when you're going to have a bit of a problem with a dog. But these 2 beautiful 2 red setters she had, I don't know what their names were, but I kind of got talking to her. Ever such a nice lady, and I must have been speaking to her for about half an hour. In fact, I would go as far as saying that this woman would be a prime candidate to do her own talk show. I couldn't get rid of her. Oh, she was going on and on and on, dear. But I couldn't get the show started. I've literally been sitting here for, that's probably why my bum's gone to sleep on this, sitting here on this tree stump. But lovely lady, and I had a long conversation with her. She's got 2 red setters, and she actually, oh, you can hear the helicopter going over there. Is that the police one? I don't know. Probably someone's reported this old bloke sitting down in the middle of the forest talking to himself, and they're coming over to collect me. Can you fly further over? It's a liberty, that's what it is, interrupting our programmes like this. Anyway, so she came over, and I said to her, beautiful dogs you've got. She said, oh, they take a lot of exercise, she says, I walk them for 4 hours a day. I said, what, all in one go? And she says, no, I come over here usually in the morning around about 5 o'clock. She comes over here, this woman, well, I mean, I know she's got the dogs with her, but I find that it's a little bit worrying, that really. She comes over here at 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning for the dog's first walk. And of course, now in October, that time of the morning, it's pitch black, except probably for the next few nights, because we've got a bit of a full moon at the moment. It's beautiful. And I was saying, well, how do you see? He said, we all wear torches. The dogs have got little flashing collars on them. Seriously. And she's got a head torch thing that goes on her head, and they just walk at night through the middle of the forest. And she said, you've got to come over here at this time. And I thought to myself, oh, hello, love. You know, I thought she's trying to get me up here on my own. I mean, you don't know what these women do. I mean, I shouldn't, let me just see if she's around. I shouldn't really say this, really. I think she was one of those desperate housewives, you know. And she's seen a young fit lad like myself sitting here. And she thinks she's going to get me up here in the forest at 5 o'clock in the morning while her husband's at work. Well, it's outrageous, dear. It's outrageous, dear. Some of these women, what they would do is unbelievable. Anyway, so she said, you've got to come up here. She said the sound of the owls is unbelievable at that time of the morning. And I got to thinking, that is something I'd like to hear. I really would, and I don't know how I would do a show where you could hear the owls twooing away. I mean, we could always cheat. Certainly, I mean, we couldn't cheat on the video side of things, but on the sound side of things, I could just push a button. Well, actually, you could do it with the video side of things, because it's the same soundtrack. But I could just push a button when I get back to the studio to put the show together, and you could have owls twooing, couldn't you? And you wouldn't know whether they're there or not, really. But I like to do the show as it is. The birds that you hear singing at the moment, the helicopter you hear flying, the noise perhaps sometimes of someone doing work in the garden, is all authentic. It's all actually here while I'm talking to you. I always think it's a bit of a cheat, really, sometimes putting the soundtrack on films and that. But I suppose a film and this show are 2 completely different things. This is life. So I would like really, to come up here one morning about 5 or 6 o'clock when the owls are still singing. The only thing is, how on earth would you see me? Those watching the video, I don't know if we could bring up some sort of light or something like that. I do actually have, I do have an LED light that might do the job. But then you're talking about setting a light up and all this business, and we just want to hear the owls. Twooo, twooo, don't we? So nice idea there. And she says she comes up here for, say, an hour in the morning, a couple of hours in the afternoon, and again in the evening to walk these. I mean, big dogs like this, red setters, so friendly. They jump straight in the pond behind me and had a bit of a swim there, and then came over and said hello to me, and they let me stroke them and all that business. And I said, do you ever get nervous coming over here on your own? She said, well, I've got the dogs now, but I used to come over here before we had the dogs. And I said to her myself that I tell people that I come over here and go walking and things like that, and people have said to me, don't you worry about someone murdering you? And my answer to that is, why would someone want to murder me while I'm over here? What have I done wrong? And quite often, I know you often hear people who do get murdered in all different situations. We're getting a lot of shootings and things, I think, I say a lot, not a lot, but certainly more than we used to have in London. But 9 times out of 10, the reason is that they're doing drugs, or it's one drug dealer is on someone else's turf or something like that. The normal person that walks down the street is usually fine. There's always a motive, and why would someone want to murder me, or indeed that lady, while you're walking through a forest? What have we got that you would want? We wouldn't be walking through here with loads of cash or anything like that, would we? So that's my answer there. But she did say she was afraid once where she was walking through the forest. Again, it was about 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, and she had iPod MP3 player on her head, and she was singing away to herself 5:30 in the morning. She wasn't taking any notice of anyone. She was just walking along, singing away. She told me she was singing a James Blunt song. And all of a sudden, she got a tap on the shoulder, and she said she just froze. She thought, oh my God. And this bloke waved to her, and he goes like that. He said, I hope you don't mind me saying, madam, but your voice is terrible. And she sort of, oh, did you not like the singing? Of course, she was terrified. You imagine. She said it was a big bloke like this. She said, or it actually wasn't. But the moment where she was tapped on the shoulder and she turned around, all she saw was a great big bloke standing there. Okay. And they had this conversation, and he said, you know, you really should be very careful when you're wearing an iPod or something in a situation like this. Woman on her own, 5:30 in the morning, in the middle of a forest. It's scary. It really is very scary. He said, you have to remember, you didn't even hear me coming over to you. And of course he was quite right. What it turns out was that he was in fact an off-duty policeman out walking his dog. He just happened to be an off-duty, and he is of course is quite right. You know, especially if you're, I mean, it's bad enough. I mean, even I wouldn't do it, to be honest. And anyway, why would you want to come over the forest and wear an MP3 player and have music playing in your ears? The whole idea of coming into the middle of a forest is that you see and indeed hear nature at its best. And he was quite right in saying you shouldn't walk. I mean, I suppose even in the middle of cities. I've heard stories of joggers going through the city with their music on, being mugged for their MP3 players. So you must be very careful in these situations. And she said since then I haven't worn, or at least when I have worn my MP3 player, she only has it in one ear. And the other ear is open. Of course, no, not so bad now because she's got the dogs with her as well. And that was it. And we had a very interesting conversation. Then we got onto the subject of Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown, our illustrious Prime Minister, whose popularity rating has now increased. I don't know wherever you are in the world, if you've seen some of his speeches recently on dealing with our money problems. Not here, just here in the UK, but of course globally. And he actually has come out with some very, very good plans, I think. I don't know what you think about that. Do let me know. Chris at UnitedKingdomTalk.co.uk. Chris at UnitedKingdomTalk.co.uk. And we carried on conversing. I carried on conversing with this lady for a good half an hour, actually. Lovely, lovely woman. It's nice to have a bit of a chat with someone, really. And I told her about the show, so she may even be watching this. I don't know. All right. Now, talking about money. Okay. Talking about money. We've had an urgent email from our friend Robert in Iceland. Hello, Robert. Regular viewer and listener to the show. It's always great to hear from you, Robert. But in particular, it's good to hear from you on this one. Because if you've been watching the news over the last week or so, you will know Iceland's banking system has gone into... It's all gone very, very wrong there. And Robert writes, you'll love this email. Hi, Chris. Well, my friend, Iceland has gone bust. But are we downhearted? No. We shall have a closing down sale and all are welcome. Except that swine of a Prime Minister, Gordon, I have no idea what to do, Brown. Now, I know what you mean there, Robert. I'm very sorry that your banking system has gone into meltdown. But Gordon Brown's... I've actually... I can't lie. I've actually likened to him over the last couple of weeks. His dealing with this economic crisis. However, I thought he was a bit heavy-handed with dealing with the money side of things in Iceland. I mean, he appeared to come into me like a bull in a china shop. Okay, well, if we can't have our money back, bang, we're freezing your assets. I thought that was a bit heavy-handed. I would have gone along the route, okay, Prime Minister of... I don't know what your Prime Minister's name is. Okay, Prime Minister of Iceland, can we get together and have a bit of a chat about it? Or maybe he did take that route, and we don't know about it, and he was rebuffed. I don't know. It just came across on the television as being a little bit heavy-handed to me, Gordon Brown, and the way he dealt with the Iceland thing. I don't know... if anyone else feels the same about that, let me know. Chris at UnitedKingdomTalk.co.uk. Robert goes on to say, on the plus side, the stock market looks full of bargains right now, and I just wish I had a few millions to invest. Well, yeah. You don't know, do you? It's often said that in a recession, the rich get richer. Because what they do, if you've got a bit of money, they buy all these stocks and shares when they're at a low price, and then they wait for them all to go up, which I suppose history says they always do, and then they cash them in again. I suppose it's a similar thing with housing. As you know, I've got a few... I delve a little bit in the housing market myself, and yes, the price in the value of my houses has now dropped. However, I am not someone who will cut and run. There were people telling me months ago to sell everything. I don't go along that. I think if you sit, hold tight, keep paying those mortgages, then it will eventually turn around. The people in trouble are these idiots who didn't put any of their own money in. They borrowed the lot, and now those are the ones in bad trouble. If you put your own money in a few years ago, along with the mortgages, then you should be okay. I don't know what goes through people's minds to think that they can borrow a load of money and then come out with even more of it without actually having put anything in themselves. It's just madness, isn't it? Robert goes on to say, "Hey dear friends, it's a great time to visit Iceland. Have you seen the price of the airfares?" No, I haven't actually. Is it a good time to visit, is it? "A few weeks ago, this place was so expensive, and now, well, we are dirt cheap. However, I do recommend bringing your own food, as we are now down to our last tin of baked beans. Help! Please send pasties, Branston pickle, pasties, and yes, more pasties." And that's from Bob the Viking in Iceland. And I am sorry, Bob, that you're all having so much problems over there. I wonder, yes, okay, the banking system, but has that affected your life over there? Your normal day-to-day life in Iceland, has that changed because of all this business? Now, I did answer his email, and I sent back an email to him and says I just requested, please can we all I wrote back to him was please could we have our money back? And he's responded, no blooming chance, he says. However, we are prepared to swap you some fish. So Bob and the Icelandic people are kind enough. They're going to get together and send us some fish over, as unfortunately they've lost all the money. Thank you, Bob. I've laughed my head off when you sent that email through. Was there another one from Bob here? There might well have been, actually. Is that the one here? Hang on a minute. I think. Oh no, that's from someone else. There we are. Thank you very much for that, Bob. I don't know if you've got any comments on that. Remember, it's a fairly light-hearted programme. Don't be blaming normal people for banks and people. It's like when people blame the Americans for all the wars and that going on around. Never ever blame the normal American people, okay? It's the politicians. A lot of the world's problems are politicians, and that's sort of, it's like, and similarly, there are plenty of people who would blame all the people of Iraq or someone like that for the terrible problems in the world. It's not the normal people. It's usually the politicians and the extremists. Okay? And my opinion is always try and get along with everyone. As long as they're not upsetting anyone, doesn't matter. They're lovely people. Onward, it's Wayne Anonymous. Hello, Wayne Anonymous, who says, "Hi, Chris. In response to your question," this is a couple of weeks old, this email. "In response to your question, is Wayne a man or a woman?" Well, it wasn't me who was asking that, Wayne, if I can correct you there. It was actually Ross P. from that Ross P podcast. And he's got the new website address now, hasn't it? www.rosspatsout.co.uk. At last he's sorted that out. It's him who's not sure whether you're a man or a woman. I don't know what sort of pictures you've been sending him, Wayne. He says, "In response to your question, is Wayne a man or a woman? Given the current economic and political turmoil here in the States, I can, in Washington, D.C., reply, I am able to state with no reservations that I am, in fact, most definitely a man or a woman." He says, "Sorry, no time for further questions from the audience." Yes, you're starting to sound like a politician, mate. You really are. He says, "Given the high profile and status of listeners to United Kingdom Talk, I'm glad that you realise that. All our friends, all our listeners and viewers to this show are high-profile, high-class people. We all are. There is no trash watching this programme. I'm telling you that now, my love. No trash at all. They aren't allowed to watch. It's as simple as that. You won't see anyone that's ever appeared on one of those dreadful TV programmes in the morning. You know, the sort that come, "You don't speak to my son like that," and all that business. You won't have any of those watching or listening. We have classy people on there, and I'm glad that you realise that, Wayne. He says, given the high profile and status of listeners to United Kingdom Talk, may I take the opportunity to announce my availability for Managing Director of the Federal Reserve Board. And he puts in brackets, keepers of the cash. Chris Reardon will serve as my Chief Loan Officer. Thank you very much, Wayne. But we're not going to be like the banks here on United Kingdom Talk. No, I am kind of considering to do loans. I'm just having a quick look at my clock here because it tells me how long I've got. I can't believe it. Is that all I've got left? 20 minutes? Blimey. Have I been talking a lot today? Yeah, here on United Kingdom Talk, if we start doing loans, I will check you out personally first. Because we don't want any of that... oh, what's it called? The dodgy loans that were given out to people in America to people who can't pay them back. How stupid is that? How stupid are the banks to ever have done that? You know, I haven't got a problem with people that can't afford to buy their own houses. They should have reasonably priced places to rent, shouldn't they? But you can understand where the people borrowing the money are coming from. They are trying to improve themselves. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't seem to realise in their heads that they can't afford to pay it back. Not everyone is the same as you and me. I suppose when it comes to finance, I'm very much, I would say I'm too far on the careful side. I know what my visa bill is going to be at the end of the month. I know how much I can afford to spend on this, that or the other. I've always been like that. I've said to you before, my dear friend Sylvie, who's Justin's mother. Justin is the one who runs one of the pubs I work in on Friday. Sylvie's his mother. And she's always saying how tight. I don't think I'm tight at all. I'm careful. You've got to be careful with money. All this business, live for today. What about tomorrow? And the answer that, well, you might not be here tomorrow, doesn't wash with me at all. It's stupid. Stupid. Thank you, Wayne. He also, where's my other... Oh, was that the only one? I thought I had two from you there, Wayne. Oh, I printed it off twice. Oh, wait, no, here we are. He says, you responded to one of my emails at 4 o'clock in the morning, UK time. Wayne says, I am beginning to wonder if all those nighttime jobs are just a cover for your vampire tendencies. I am a vampire. Well, I will be a vampire if I come up here at 5 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the forest, wouldn't I? Oh, I'd love to hear those owls. I've got to do that. I've got to do that. He says, come to think of it, you are a property... Actually, yeah, I have got a light. Does it matter if the lighting isn't that good when I'm recording this show, just for a one-off at night time? You wouldn't mind, would you? I've got to do that. I've got to come over at that time in the morning. He says, come to think of it, you are a property owner, landlord, and do really hate to spend money. It's true. It is true. A true indicator of blood-sucker genes. You will be perfect as my loan officer and enforcer. Oops, I meant to say collector. Thank you, Wayne. Nice to hear from you. Now, I'll tell you what, it's come over very cloudy. It has been cloudy since I came up here. But, my bum is really falling to sleep on this now. Shall I kneel down for a while? I feel like I'm at church, kneeling down, waiting for my Holy Communion. And I'm a bit concerned it's going to start raining, but if it does, don't worry. We'll stop this bit of the show and I'll complete the last 15 minutes or so in the studio. Right, and talking of Ross Patzout, here he is. He's written in. Ross Patzout, who does his own podcast. Go to rosspatzout.co.uk for that, okay? rosspatzout.co.uk. I think I've got that right. He says, hi, Chris. Just listen to the last show of... Oh, hang on, wrong email. Oh, what have I done here? Oh, hang on, where are we now? I've mixed up my bits of paper here, haven't I? Oh, silly Chrissy. That's an old email. I don't know what that's doing in the pile there. Oh, don't say can't have left this at home, surely. It's here somewhere. One minute. Oh, it's not. There was an email. Oh, is this it? Hang on. Is this it? Here it is. Here it is. Thought I'd lost your email then, Ross. I would never have heard the end of that. I've been listening to his podcast, Ross. I mean, I have. You've painted a very clear picture of yourself, to be honest, Ross. You come across as a beer swilling, pork pie eating type of person. And I was listening to Ross talking about what holidays he would like. Does he like to go on doing holidays? He says certainly he doesn't like to go on holidays where you do things. His idea of a holiday is to go... I mean, this is a sort of person. Is to go to Benidorm, sit around a hotel pool and drink beer all day and eat burgers. I mean... That is a sort of holiday that he likes to be on. I heard him talking in one of his other shows. He was in a pub in the afternoon with some of his friends. Ross does seem to spend a lot of time in pubs. I mean, I do, but I work in them. You rarely see me go down to a pub. Ross does appear to spend most of his free time sitting in a pub with a few mates drinking beers. And he was saying he was down this pub the other day and he was supposed to meet his girlfriend coming out, I think from possibly, where was she coming out from? Was it a shopping or work or something? He was supposed to meet his girlfriend at a said time, and it got to near the time and he'd already been in this pub for about 5 hours with his mates and he wanted to stay there. So he rang her up. I think he was supposed to pick her up. Or was he going to be picked up? I can't remember now. Anyway, we're supposed to meet her, and he rang her up about 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night and said to her, "Do you mind if I stay here with my mates a bit longer?" After we were supposed to meet her. I tell you what, I would have dumped you there and then, Ross. I really would. What a cheek. If you're going to meet someone, you've got to be there on time. There's nothing worse than that. That's awful. Telling your girlfriend that you want to stay in the pub a bit, you prefer to stay in the pub a bit more longer with your mates. That is awful. Awful, awful, awful. I shall be having a word with Donna about that. So that's the sort of bloke he is. He likes to spend his time in pubs, eating pork pies, sitting around pools in Benidorm or Magaluf or Torremolinos, somewhere like that, drinking beer and eating burgers all day long. God, you must have terrible wind. That's all I can... It's awful. I can just imagine sitting next to you on the... I don't know how... Oh, you don't let off in bed, I hope, either, do you? Oh. Oh, my... Oh, bleh. Oh, I feel you on there. Bleh. Bleh. Oh, no, terrible. Ross writes, "Hi, Grandad. What a cheek." Ross has now started calling me Grandad because he does feel that I am the Grandad of podcasts. I mean, I've got to say, it's a really nice thing to think that something I've done has inspired other people to do podcasts as well, like yourself and, of course, Joe from AmericanTalkUSA.com. It is a nice feeling, that. And, yeah, we all do different things, don't we? He says, "Hi, Grandad. I heard you..." He calls me the Grandad of podcasts. "I heard you talking on the last show about pilots doing van checked." Now, well, I think you got that a bit confused. A pilot actually flies a plane. They don't usually drive vans as well, unless they're doing a little bit of a job on the side, which they don't have to do because they get loads of money anyway. Those of them that have still got jobs. He says, "We also have to do many checks daily because Ross is a delivery man. He delivers for one of the major supermarkets. You know when you on the internet. I mean, I don't do it myself. I think it's a lazy way to shop. I really do, but it keeps people like Ross P and that in jobs. Otherwise, you see, Ross P, if Ross didn't have a job, he'd be one of those sort of people, I reckon. If he lost his job, then immediately Donna would dump him, and he'd be one of those people that end up on the streets drinking cans of lager, collecting money. I think he would be like, and looking in bins for half-eaten burgers. I have a feeling Ross would be one of those sort of people. And I would send you money. I think I might even send you money if you did that. Trouble is, you know, if Ross went, and he'd quickly fall down the route of drinking drugs, I'm afraid. I do think he'd be sitting there on the pavement in the Strand in London, telling everyone that he wanted money to get a sandwich. He'd given the money and he'd be straight round to the local dealer to get a couple of bits of heroin to inject into his veins. He would very quickly slip into that. So thank God that supermarkets employ people like him so that they've got something to do. He said, we also have to do many checks daily on our vans to check everything is working well. Yeah, because a couple of shows ago I said that pilots have to walk around the plane and do all these checks, you see. How long have we got left, by the way? Let me have, I've got a stopwatch with me today. Okay. He says, let me see. I now do these to mine and Donna's car. And he says, yes, it's my car now too. Oh, isn't it nice? He's found a girlfriend and they're sharing everything. I think that's nice. Do you know what, Ross? Years ago, of course, I thought I was straight once as well, and I've got married and had girlfriends and all that in my earlier life. And I always had this dream after I divorced and all that business, and then I did have a few more girlfriends, actually, after I divorced, and then kind of went the other way. And one of the things, we got another dog visit. This is a Shep dog, right? We used to have this programme in the UK. All right there. Roger. We used to have this programme on the UK called Blue Peter. Come here. What's your name? Oh, he's not going to come and say hello. What's his name? Mick. Mick? Mick. Hello, Mick. Hello, mate. Yeah, look at this. He looks like a Shep dog. Is he a Shep dog? Yeah. Beautiful dog. Look. Go for a walk there. You're the fifth dog to visit, actually. I didn't realise this path was so busy going past here. Well, yeah, we used to have this programme in the UK called Blue Peter, and it had a dog called Shep, just like that. Beautiful dog it was. Who was the owner of Shep? Oh, a bloke called John Oakes. Blue Peter is actually, it's been going for 50 years now, and there was, when I was a kid, the presenters were John Oakes, Peter Purvis, and all the kids used to call him Peter Pervert, which of course he isn't, but we used to call him that. Peter Purvis, Leslie Judd, and there was another lady, Valerie Singleton. And John Oakes was the owner of a beautiful dog like that called Shep. I always remember, of course, you know, pets and people, they don't last forever. And after so many years, I don't know, 20 years or so, he lost Shep. Shep died. And I always remember him on the programme, and they said he had left Blue Peter a while before, a few years before, and he was brought onto another programme, and they were talking about Blue Peter, and someone asked him about his dog. It was, let me think who it was. It was actually Bill Oddie. Bill Oddie, who was also, he's another person on the television. He used to do a comedy show called The Goodies, which was very, very funny in the 70s. And more recently, he does all these bird watching programmes and nature things and all that. And he was interviewing John Oakes, and his dog had died, Shep. And this bloke just burst into tears on the telly, and it was all very sad, really. You can see here the dog's having a bit of a splash around in the pool, and it was all very sad. And of course, who was it? Someone lost a pet this year who emailed the show in, didn't they? I can't remember who it was now. Who was it who lost? Was it you who lost a pet? Now hang on a minute. That was my sister, wasn't it? You silly fool. It was my sister who lost a dog, and they really do become members of the family, don't they? Anyway, back to the email. Ross has got what pets has Ross has got? A budgerigar, hasn't he? He's got a budgie. Ross says these are the checks that we have to do every day on our car, and indeed every week. Now, out of all these, tell me if you and your listeners do these too. He says daily: check and clean headlights, reverse, brake and side lights. Check reverse sensor works. Oh, you must have a posh van, Ross. I haven't got a reverse sensor on my car. Why do you need something like that, though? Eh? I mean, I'm assuming, Ross, actually, that you know, you've already got these things on the car. You didn't ask for them. But don't you know what's... Well, I suppose not. No. I mean, I used to drive a very large British Telecom when I worked for BT. I was an engineer with them. Oh, fantastic job. Absolutely fantastic job that was, working for BT. I'll be honest, I actually tried to get back in last year. In January, I nearly chucked up all the DJing stuff. I got really down and fed up with it all, to be honest. I nearly chucked it all up in the air and went to do a normal job. 2 jobs I applied for. One was Southwest Trains, okay? But I made a mistake. Can you believe I made some sort of safety mistake? They ask questions about, on the application form, they ask questions about what fire safety you know. So I said, well, I can use a fire extinguisher and that. And they found the application on that. They said I didn't give them enough information. So they found on that, which I can't understand that. I also reapplied to BT to be an engineer again, because I really enjoyed that job. But the whole way of applying for the job has changed. You do it all online, apparently, and they say they will get back to you if they need anyone. It's completely different. The last time I applied for a job, of course, would have been in 1980. Was that when I joined them? I think somewhere around 79, let me see, 60, 73, 79, 80. I think 1980, 1981. It was very, very different then. You filled in your application form and then you went in for an interview. Now it's all online and they contact you. It's very, very different. I didn't have, on that big van, we didn't have a reverse light on, a reverse sensor on that. And yeah, I mean, I would imagine it's actually quite dangerous. Reverse it well. I mean, you couldn't see directly behind you because it was a box on the back of like a trailer type thing. So all I had was the side mirrors. So you would have to get out of the van and look behind you. Make sure there was nothing there, then get back in the van and reverse. But of course, you know, in the space of those few seconds where you've looked and got back in the van, some child or someone could have walked past you again. And I was always very, very nervous about reversing this van. I mean, the side mirrors, you do use your side mirrors, of course, but you can't see directly behind you. So actually, the reverse sensor is a very important thing there. He says we have to check the oil and water and also check no new van damage and tyres are inflated. Now, he does that daily. And also weekly, he says he checks the tyre pressure, cleans the van inside and out, checks the brake fluid and he's got a side step thing that goes up and down and checks that works. And he has to do all these checks. And he says it's amazing just by checking every day how defects can pop up without you even noticing. We also have trackers in our vans that now see how fast we are going, if we brake sharply, and even when you pass wind. Now, I don't believe that for one moment. Don't believe that for one moment. What, an alarm goes off, does it, when you break wind? How awful. I've got to be honest, the only thing I do, and I do this weekly, Ross, is I check the oil and I check the water level in the windscreen washer. And to be honest, that's all I ever do. Now and again, I have a look at the brake fluid reservoir and I tap it so I can see where the level of the fluid is in there, and I do check that as well. But to be honest, that's about all, Ross. I don't do all these checks, and I think you'll find most people don't, to be honest. He says pilots must be so careful as there must be so many things that can go wrong with a plane, but that's why they get paid so much, he says. All the best from Ross. P.S. Ross also says I'm not under the thumb and never will be. Well, I think we know that, dear, from when you said you're leaving your girlfriend out so you can carry on drinking with your mates. It's a liberty, that's what it is. And he says, PPS, watch a new programme called Sunshine on BBC with Steve Coogan. It's all about a gambler and his addiction, and it's amazingly good. And I have seen that, Ross. Excellent programme. If you're in the UK and you haven't seen that, look out for that, okay? It's called Sunshine. Very, very good programme. I saw the first episode of that last week. Finally today, one email from Suko. Hello, Suko, my darling. You had to go and top James's brush with his own fame when he was recognised on the bus. Yes, do you remember that a couple of shows ago? Ross was recognised on a bus, dear. I was recognised on a plane. Of course I had to top that. Suko, you don't think I could possibly let James Dean get away with that, did you? She says, so you think being recognised on a plane is a big deal? Well, listen to this. I got into a taxi and said, make it quick, I have to review a Broadway play for a radio show I do. The driver asked, what show? I said, The Matinee. That's another podcast you might want to have a listen to. The thematineeshow.co.uk. That's with James Dean and Madam Aries. And on that show, they talk about all show things. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, am I going to sneeze or not? Yeah. Oh dear, I thought we might have got for a whole show there without sneezing. Just a quick one there, all right? Yeah, the Matinee Show, they talk about all show type things, and they do reviews of the theatre and play show tune things. Fantastic show, actually, all right? The thematineeshow.co.uk. He said, are you Suko? This is the taxi driver. She said, yes. And then she said, or he said, are you the same Suko on Chris Reardon's United Kingdom talk? I proudly said yes. And he abruptly stopped the taxi and said, get out of my cab. Thank you very much for that one, Suko. Great to hear from you as always. And that's about it from the show today. I hope you've enjoyed the show today, coming to you from the forest. As I say, those of you watching, nice to have a little bit of a different background behind us with the lake and, of course, the trees and the birds singing. And we will try and come up here definitely at night time and do something at night as well, okay? The email address to the show, if you want to join in, it's chris@unitedkingdomtalk.co.uk. chris@unitedkingdomtalk.co.uk. Thanks for listening and watching. I'll see you on the next show. From myself, Chris Reardon. Bye-bye now.